Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. The ThunderCast is your Marshall representatives for the College Huddle, the largest fan-driven podcasting network in America. Go to thecollegehuddle.com to find out all of the affiliated members of the College Huddle, including some fellow Sun Belt Conference members. Russ, it was nice to get the midweek football hump off of Huff's back. Those have been unkind to him since he began his head coaching tenure here at Marshall. But we had a big one at home, and Georgia State came to town. It looked like there was going to be some little heat behind this one. They got us last year down in Atlanta. The Herd had some things to prove, I think, after letting one slip away against Georgia Southern and that sour taste that was in everybody's mouth and all of the news really that came out about that and the response by coach and the athletic department and some of the things that were just out there on social media was kind of refreshing, to be honest. And I'd like to talk about that in a minute. Maybe before we actually get into things, I'd like to touch on that. So we'll do that between the five things, but I do need a quick word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
All right, before I transition into the five things that every Herd fan needs to know this week, I want to talk about that. I hadn't planned on doing that, but as I was doing that intro, it just popped into my head, and I think it's worthwhile to spend a couple minutes.
Okay.
Because there has been a gripe here for a while, but it got amplified after that game against Georgia Southern, where fans just had this stance. So not every fan, but some fans had this stance that the athletic department just is not listening to us when we, not me and you, but us as fans, when we cry out or when we want.
I don't think they listen to us either.
I know they don't listen to us. Actually, they do listen, but they don't, you know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, and I think it's worthwhile to note that some of the things that got put out there and some of the things that showed up for this Georgia State game prove that they are paying attention and they are listening. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that fans want done is going to get done. Every change that you want to see happen is not going to happen. But you saw some of the same general comments, I want to know if anything stood out to you in particularly, for maybe it's a tweet or a Facebook post or something by folks from the athletic department or somebody in a position of power in Marshall athletics. Did anything particularly stick out to you?
First thing that comes to mind is probably not where you're going with this.
No, it's not a loaded question. I'm just
curious. I know, but I mean, the things that you noticed is lower on the pecking order, I'm sure, than the number one thing for me. And it's something that I cared zero about, the Thundersticks. Fans have been talking about wanting the Thundersticks and doing that for a long time. And, they made an effort to get those for the student section and everything. And I felt that was one of the things. I mean, they even said, you've asked for it, we've listened, and that was the very first thing when you said that popped into my mind versus all the other different things that we can talk about that you can list and all that. That was number one for me, that, hey, what would this hurt? So they said, yeah, let's spend a little money and go do this.
Yeah, that was something that, to me, that's a thing that fans of a certain age want, because that was something that was probably present at Marshall games when they were kids. And now they're obviously a little older, they're college age or whatever, and they just like to see that return. I mean, obviously I was already older and didn't need that sort of thing when they made their debut at the stadium initially. So I didn't really have any thoughts one way or another, but I do think it was cool that Christian Spears actually said, hey, we heard you.
Mhm.
and they made those available kind of like through the Stampede a little bit, so that gave
Mhm.
them the megaphone to be able to say, hey, you wanted them, we got them, good reason to be a part of the Stampede type thing. But yeah, that was a big thing too, because they did come out and just say, we heard what you're saying, right?
Mhm.
But to me, it was more about the response from Coach Huff in the pressers and things like that. And you start to wonder initially, okay, how much of it is coach speak? And then as the week goes on and you hear more and more things, and you hear things that players are saying, and they're like, you know what, they really were pissed off.
Mhm.
They took that one personally, that they let that slip away. And as a fan, as a real, like, I hate to use the term real fan, but as somebody that really truly cares, that made me feel good that those guys got pissed off, and that one lingered for a minute. They just weren't like, oh, on to the next.
Sure.
A lot of times that's the appropriate response to have. I don't think after the meltdown that happened, that on to the next would have been the appropriate response. That one needed to linger and sting a little bit. And for the guys to say some of the things, or phrase things in ways that came out throughout the week, it made me think that they were really genuinely pissed off, and they might have seen that as an opportunity to change the narrative of their season, from Georgia State onward.
Mhm.
So maybe that was the flame that's going to light the fire for this Herd team, because there are some tough games down the stretch. ULM's going to come to town, and in the preseason we thought, man, you can't be losing to ULM at home. But we didn't know that ULM was going to have a great turnaround and be 5-1 to this point. And
Yeah.
that game is still very much winnable. I'm not trying to build in an excuse for if and when Marshall loses, because I don't think they will. Spoiler alert. But then you got to go to James Madison. You've got to play Old Dominion. And Coastal Carolina. There's just games that you have to win. You really have to win them all. At this point, you have to win them all. So I'm glad that that's stuck in the craw of some of our guys, and fans, for better or worse, if they wanted to acknowledge that they were heard, that some of the messaging was seen on social media and kind of appropriately responded to. You're not
Mhm.
going to call out a play or a person, a fan, by name, but you're just going to be like, yeah, we're pissed off too, man. It's like, we're focused. Don't worry. So anyway, I just wanted to spend a minute or two talking about that, because I think that mindset led into what we saw play out on the field last Thursday against Georgia State. And we're going to get into all that, but right now I need you to give me 5-ish things that every Herd fan needs to know this week.
Let's go with 6, and let's start it off. Number 1, AJ Turner and Reese Verhoff named Sunbelt Conference Offense and Special Team Players of the Week, respectively.
Yeah, that was a big week, man. Herd football as a whole kind of racked up a bunch of notoriety this week, but it's about time. AJ Turner. Is it time now for the guys to just embrace that he is the weapon on the offensive side of the football? Air raid be damned. Ha, it was funny. It's not an air raid. We're running the football almost 60% of the time. And, you can tell me about the concepts and the downfield passing and all that, but that's not what an air raid is, and we know it. And let's just face it, we are a strong running team, and we should just continue to be a strong running team.
Yeah,
And
I
I
don't.
thought AJ could have gone for 2 bills in that game, honestly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. The only two things that I've been saying kind of all year is I think that he has great success because he comes in when he does. He's not taking that 25 carries and he's getting worn down or beat up or, packing a lot of injuries. He's getting it done, coming in and being that fresh guy that comes in and is just, hey, let's knock off a 60-yarder. Let's knock off a 28-yarder. I don't think that he would get overexposed. I'm not saying that at all. But I feel like right now you've got Jordan Houston that comes in that it does such a good job with the blocking and being that kind of utility all down back. And then you come in and you say, okay, here's AJ Turner. I feel like he thrives in that. I think that the yards per carry are going to go down if he starts getting 25 carries a game.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying anything bad about him. I'm saying what he has been used so far. Like, I don't think it would be fair to say, and you're not saying this, well, give him 10 more carries and he's going to get another 120 yards because he's getting 12 a clip.
Right.
I don't think that that's going to extrapolate out to that. The other thing before you say that, the other thing that I've said is it is the concepts of the air raid that's getting the ball out quicker and keeping us off of the sacks that we're giving up and things like that. So no, it is not an air raid, but the concepts of that, and it's still night and day from where we were at trying to pass last year with this year. And I feel like it has also opened up the run because of the downfield passing that we have.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, like, at this point, you are who you are, and we are a strong running team. And you can have a concept of getting the ball out with quick passes without having called yourself an air raid offense. I think that was, I don't want to keep beating this dead horse. It's just like, you call it whatever you want. I don't care what they call it, as long as it ends up with touchdowns on the board and, wins at the end of the game. I don't care what you call it. And I also want to take that a step further and fully 100% agree with you. I am not out here clamoring and beating the desk for give AJ Turner 25 carries a game. I think this is the perfect kind of mix to where you limit the damage that his body's taking. You're seeing maximum efficiency and effectiveness from him out of the run game. And let's face it, dude, his MO all season long has been bide my time. Boom, here comes the long run. That's just been his MO. And the stat came out earlier this week that Hurt has tweeted about it. He's the only running back in the nation that has touchdowns of 80-plus yards or runs of 80-plus yards, I think. That's just the name of his game, So why would you want to subject him to 25 carries, 25 hits, 10 maybe extra hits a game, the potential for a turnover? And he's been really good, by the way. I'm just saying those are just extra carries. I think he's doing well. Really, the only thing that you can look at it holistically from a bird's eye viewpoint and say, you know what, he should have gotten some carries there. He should have gotten some carries there.
Sure.
And we'll go back to that Georgia Southern game and say that he should have gotten some carries there. But it's not 25 a game, and that's what I consistently see on social media. He needs it 25, 30. No, I don't think you do, man. No. I don't think you do. I think maybe one or two more in a certain part of the game if it calls for it. But that's really about it.
I think 15 to 20 is a perfect sweet spot right there.
It is.
And let each individual game dictate it. Don't be on necessarily a pitch count, to use a baseball term. Don't say, well, it can't be over this, or here's what we're going to try to do, and try to shoehorn those in. I think you call his number when it dictates, but he needs to be on the field to have that number called, on some of these series. So, maybe switch the running backs mid-series or something like that a little bit more. And then you can bring in a Jordan Houston or an Ethan Payne on a third down, play where it needs third and fourth downs where you need to have that extra blocker in, when they're coming with the blitz and things like that. I think that maximum efficiency, your words there, could not be a better fit than what's going on right now with him.
Yeah, and just to your point of saying they do swap backs, of course, throughout a drive.
Yeah,
and Houston is a hard runner, so he's most of the time falling forward. You're going to get a gain. It might not be a 88-yard gain, but have we not seen him take a little swing pass out of the backfield and do some major damage? Have we not seen him get that hard yard when it's 3rd and 4? You get 5, you get 6. Yeah, and also have we not seen AJ Turner get that little swing pass or the running back wheel route? Oh, look at that, the 30-yard touchdown down the field. These guys complement each other so well. It's just that Turner's game, for whatever reason, is just clicking in the right way this year. You know, it's pretty nice to see. And to switch gears and talk about Verhoff, man, what a week for him. What a stretch it's been for him. I think it's 8 straight kicks now that he's made, set his career long, maybe a couple of times in that stretch. When early in the year we were like, the Herd's got to get kicking figured out. You know, this is worrisome. And even going into the App State game, we were like, man, if it comes down to a kick, I don't know, you know. And then kind of ever since then, Verhoff's been like, all right, fine. Like
just looking at the last 2 weeks, you know, you're 5 for 5, and 3 of those were over 47 yards, or 4 of them were over 46 or something. It's just been, let me show you what I can do. I think he's finally reached that potential. We talked about it before, and I think that last week when you were off, I was talking to Jed about it, that he always had that distance, but to get that distance, he had to kick a line drive flat ball. And early in his career, he had, you know, at least 2, I think, maybe 3 that were blocked, you know, and it was because it was a low line drive to get that distance. He has not had that problem this year. He's just been a little bit wide right or a little bit wide left, but he's had plenty of leg, plenty of height. Well, it seems just dialed in now with the accuracy as well.
Yeah, you're right. I remember a game, I think it was a game down at Troy that we were in the thick of, and he had a field goal blocked, and I want to think it was right before halftime that we needed. It was the game where they had a scoop and score early in the game, which basically ended up being the difference in that game. Of course, Troy goes on to win the conference, and that was one you would have loved to have on the road if you were the Herd. But you're right. It's been a great little bit of development over the last 3 to 4 weeks for Verhoff. He's really caught his stride. I think the confidence is back in a very big way, and that's huge for kickers. You know, it's so much a mental game when it comes to kicking, and to know that you've got the leg to hit it from what's the edge of the range? I don't know that we've seen the full range yet. You know,
it sure didn't look like that was his limit on the Georgia Southern game when he hit a 53-yarder, 51-yarder, whatever it was. Excuse me. You're talking about mental game. You remember years ago, I think it was Nick Smith, and he was, you know, putting out these videos like with these trick shot kicks and things, and you know, he had plenty of distance, and everyone was talking about what a great kicker he was. And I'm thinking it was MTSU where he went down there and maybe missed 3 or something like that.
Oh, I remember that. That was a weird game. We missed like 6 field goals or something in that entire game. Yeah.
And it just seemed like he got the yips. He was never the same.
Yeah.
And that is something in this kicking game. I can't imagine the pressure that's on that, especially when your number is the one called to win the game at the end. And, you know, you get the ice of the kicker and things like that. You know, it just takes a special mentality to go in there and do that. And, you know, you miss kicking by an inch or a centimeter on that ball where you normally hit it and you push it, you know, or get it too high, too low, anything like that. You've got to be spot on. But right now, luckily for us, he is in the zone.
Yeah, he sure is. And to reel off a Offensive Player of the Week and SBC Special Teams Player of the Week, big time for the Herd. That was a big game. They needed to win that one, of course, to get back over 500, to keep pace in the East and all of those things. Can't wait to talk about that one. But what else we got?
Number 2, we're going to stick with Sunbelt Player of the Week, and we got one for volleyball again. Beatrice Ciccarelli named SBC Defensive Player of the Week in volleyball.
Cool, man. It's been a minute since we've had an of the week in volleyball. We started out like gangbusters, and then kind of fizzled a little bit once we get into conference play, and that's always a bummer, you know, because I'm cool with the early season success and these kind of like, I don't know what you want to call them, just non-conference tournaments. You know, you do really well and stuff, but man, you really got to make your hay in the Sun Belt Conference, and it's another year tough in conference, but you know, and of the week is thumbs up. You know, it's a bit of sunshine on an otherwise kind of rough season, but anytime you know we get those, we're going to talk about it because it's just awesome.
Yeah. Number 3, men's basketball picked to finish 10th in the Sun Belt Conference preseason poll Nate Martin picked for first team. Obina picked for second team.
Fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of
Yep.
question marks surrounding the
Mm-hmm.
herd. Coaching
Yep.
change. I think Nate Martin is a slam dunk first team All SBC player. I think everybody would agree with that. And I think there are a lot of people, even outside of Marshall, that would maybe even argue that Obina is deserving of first team recognition. He's just that good of a player. So to see him land on the second team also definitely deserved. Those two guys make up a very formidable duo. But there's just so much that Marshall's got to fix, replace, changes in the program. There's a lot. So I can't be mad at 10th, but I just don't think Marshall's going to finish 10th. I think we'll finish much higher than 10th. But I don't think we're going to be below that, and definitely 10th. I think it'll be more than that.
Yeah, and you talk about all the change, and even though Coach Jackson is a part of the departing coaching staff, he was elevated from within, and he's been there in this system for so long. I feel like there's going to be much more than just a small tweak to this. He's going to put his own spin on this program, offensively and defensively. We've already heard things about the defensive switching and things like that that'll be different. I feel like that they are probably going to feature these two post players a lot more. Maybe you let the offensive half court run through them occasionally. But newcomers that are coming in, they're unknown to these other coaches, so they're going to get a lower grade. I think mid-season, when you're a couple of games into the conference schedule, I think then you'll have a better feel for what this team is actually going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And not only are these players new to other coaches, they're new to one another. So we very much have to figure out an identity of who we are in real time. And I know that the coach will say, well, this is who we want to be.
Sure.
But who you want to be and who you are is sometimes two different things. And even if it turns into being the same thing, it's how long does it take you to get there? I've got a tremendous amount of faith in Coach Jackson. I think he did a great job of hitting the portal. He coveted some players or some skill sets that he needed to run his system effectively, and I think he went out and targeted some players that check a lot of those boxes. But at the end of the day, they've got to be able to play well together. They've got to be able to communicate at a high level. But it does help to have a game in and game out double machine.
Yeah.
And really Oben is right there too. He could be a double guy every night as well. So,
man, if both of them do double averages, look out.
Right. But the potential is there for those dudes down low to be double guys. And then at that point, it's just who's going to make up your perimeter scoring, who's going to, that kind of thing. And can you take care of the football, and how will we stack up? And, I would love to be able to dive deep into these, into basketball. But man, it's coming on so fast. The fans' first game was already announced, and that's coming up real soon. And dang, man, it's like, these schedules that I'm on are really, really hindering the things that I want to do with you on the show. But there's a lot of excitement around both programs, and I'm assuming that will probably be the next thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, let's switch over to women for number 4. They were picked 6th in the SBC preseason poll, and Aislinn Hayes, first team.
Good. I'm going to say that. Good. I'm glad that they've picked the herd at 6th, because I saw some folks saying, oh, there's a lot of disrespect for Marshall. I don't think it is disrespect, man. For all that Julie Folks is supposed to bring, it's still a coaching change. Mm-hmm. It's still a new system. It's not Coach Kim's system. And if you will recall, Marshall was not picked to win the conference last year when they hired a brand new coach. So,
and it's a lot of players that we lost and production that we lost.
That's right.
I think that's very fair, and I think that I'm right there with you. Let them doubt. Let them think, oh, well, this won't be the same team as last year. And even though it won't, I'm talking about production results, that sort of thing, that even though it won't be the same team, let them come in and shock everybody and be the team to beat. That's what I'd love to see.
Mm-hmm.
We said last year around this time not to expect Coach Kim to come in and just turn the conference on its ear and run the table. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Were we wrong, though?
But I mean, you got to say the same thing here that,
Yeah.
If this season is all about getting the program headed in the way that she wants to shape it, Coach Fawkes, and she, implements her system, and, it takes a little while to ease into it. Fans have to understand that and can't say, well, she didn't have the results that Kim had, so, this is a failure. It's not. What we had last year is so hard to do in year one. Ridiculously hard to do.
Well, it's not just that it's hard to do. Look what happened following that season. Yeah. Your head coach was here for 1 year and then goes to arguably one of the most prestigious women's basketball programs historically in the history of the freaking sport, right? And the first person to ever be hired outside of the Tennessee coaching tree or playing tree, like outside of the program as a dude, that's kind of earth-shattering for them. You know what I mean? Just like, that just doesn't happen. Obviously it doesn't. It's the first time it happened. So the comparisons are going to be there. I'm not saying don't bring them. I'm just saying that what we had last year was so special. That may not be ever happen again, ever, anywhere. That's so wild, the way that all went down.
So tough to do.
Now, do I have faith in Julie Fawkes? Absolutely. You don't win 5 or 96 out of 100 games by friggin' accident.
Winners win. We say it all the time. Coaches coach, winners win, players play, shooters shoot, all those different things. She's a winner. And everywhere she's gone, she's been a winner. It is contagious when you have that kind of mentality, that kind of success, and the history that you have with that is just, hey, we're coming in. This is the culture that we have. We expect to win. It's contagious.
And let's not forget that there is still plenty of talent that returns to this roster. Big loss with Abby Beeman being gone, obviously, reigning player of the year. That's hard to replace. You really don't just replace that. You hope that you can get a player or a couple of players to offset what Abby was able to do on a game in and game out basis.
2 point guards.
But you lose. Yeah, that's right. You don't lose just one, you lose 2. But that being said, you still return Meredith Mayer, who's a sharpshooter from outside, came on like crazy towards the middle and the end of the season last year. And you mentioned that Aislinn Hayes returns as a first-team all-conference player. I imagine you will see more of the same, right? And then you start to wonder, like, okay, who else can step up? Who else can take on a larger role, right? CeCe Mays could be one of those players that sees an uptick in production. She played well last year, and there's a ton of other players that are still on this roster, and it's not like it's a bunch of youth. If you go to the Herd Zone roster, which I'm on right now, there are only two players, three total players that are not a junior or higher. Right, that's it. You got 1 sophomore, 2 redshirt freshmen. This is a seasoned veteran team, and whether they've been here in Huntington for the entirety of their career or they've transferred in, you have a roster that's played a lot of basketball and have been in a lot of big games, and many of them at the Division I level, if not all of them. So it's about finding the pieces and Coach Julie putting those pieces on the floor and being able to outpace our opponents. We saw that last year. That should be the name of the game again this year. It's possessions. It's all about the number of possessions and having more opportunities to score more points. That's how you win. And this team was built to. They just never got tired last year, and that's what works at this level and in this conference. It's a proven formula. It works. we gassed everybody that we played, and then we would run away late. So while the overall system might be different a little bit, I bet you it's still going to be a pretty fast-paced offense, a pretty fast-paced smothering type pace for the herd, because it works. And we know that the roster is still full of players that play to that level. So why would you try to reinvent the wheel?
All right, so number 5, is it? Yes, number 5. Men's soccer is back up to 3rd in the United Coaches rankings. And then I wrote that down like when it happened. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's been so long, they've dropped back down to 4.
Yeah.
And the 16 team rankings are also out. And wasn't that 10 that they were 10th on that?
What? I don't get that. Okay. Like, what are we doing here? You can't be a top 5 team in basically the 2 most agreed upon polls out there, top drawer and whatever what is it, D1 soccer or something?
Yeah.
United Soccer. You can't be a top 5 team in both of those and then come in and be like, well, we think you're the 10th best. Come on, man. Yeah. Like, give me a break. And that's fine. Rankings are rankings. Doesn't matter. Yeah. You can't tell me that any one of those teams, I don't care who they are, they don't want to match up against what the herd puts on the pitch. They don't. Now they're not going to come out and publicly say, we don't want to play Marshall, because you're not going to do that. But when you're looking up and down the roster and how you match up with other teams, I bet you there are other teams that you would rather play before having to go through the herd. So fine, be 10th, be freaking 16th. I don't give a shit. It's going to ultimately end up in pain and suffering for some teams that are ahead of us.
Bottom line is we handle business the rest of the regular season and the conference tournament. There are enough quality teams that we're going to be playing that will make a statement, we'll move up if you handle your business. The other thing is, who cares as long as you make that tournament,
Well, don't we know that firsthand from several years ago?
It's exactly what I was going to say. You come in and you had all this different things that you had to do on the road and do this and do that and play this team and the defending national champion, the number 1 overall ranked team, all this different things. And we're just like, yeah, beat them, champions.
Yeah, that's what I say too. Man. It's like, whatever. It really looks like they're trying to trickle in some power bias into these rankings, and I don't get it, because this is not a sport right now that you can just hide behind a team name. Like, you still have to go out and win. You're and if you want to win, you can't schedule like football. You know what I'm saying? Like, you still have to play enough games to where you have to play some top tier talent outside of your conference, particularly if you're in a kind of weak conference. You have to go out and schedule some top tier talent, and that's fine. I think Marshall's just take on all comers type of mentality. What do they got to be afraid of? They're freaking good, and whatever. Just get in the tournament, and that's all that matters. You're right.
Number 6, and our final thing, Mike Green added to the Bednarik Award watch list.
Man, I've forgotten about that. I'm glad you brought that back up. That's huge, especially for a G5 guy, because generally we see those guys make the preseason watch list and then start falling off as you get into the season. They're like, they've been well, but we honored him with making him a watch list guy. Not Mike Green. Mike Green has gone out there and produced at such a level and dominated at such a level that he's added to the midseason list, which is a totally different animal, in my opinion, because that says, hey, this wasn't an arbitrary, we think you might be good. We wanted to pick X number of players from your conference and you're getting a lot of hype preseason, so we'll just add you. No, it's like, damn, like, we didn't pay attention to this dude, and now look what he's doing. So that's big news, man. And we know it's going to go to some power conference guy like they always do, and that's fine. Hoarding awards and all that kind of stuff is kind of what they do. And to me, this is a different type of animal being added to a mid-season watch list as opposed to a preseason watch list, which is also cool, but it means you've gone out and proven that you belong there. and that you weren't getting the proper amount of respect leading into the season. So very cool for Mike Green. Just having a phenomenal season. Look, I know it's early and a lot can happen, and there's still a lot of football to be played. It might not be unfathomable to this point, Russ, that Marshall could have the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year and the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. That's kind of wild, I mean, there's got to be a lot of winning. You got to think for stuff like that to happen, even though those are individual awards. You got to have team success to go along with that. And you can't be a 5-7 team or a 6-6 team, not make a conference championship or whatever. I'm not saying you have to go, but could you imagine having the Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and limping to 6-6? That would be one of the most unique talking points that we have ever had in Huntington. But anyway, I digress. We got anything else?
No, I just want to say that echoing what you're talking about with Mike Green getting in there, not just in the preseason, but coming in mid-season, that expectations were high for Mike, and I feel like he has exceeded expectations. We knew he was going to have a special year, but we didn't think let's go embarrass a left tackle at Ohio State that's going to be playing on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Let's come in and have 4.5 sacks or whatever it was, through the first 3 games, 4 games or whatever, and be, leading the nation, tied for the lead, whatever. The man is getting double and sometimes triple teamed and held on, every other play. And he's still living in the backfield, creating havoc and really allowing everybody else to do their thing. So kudos to Mike on this. That's a major award just to be mentioned there this late in the game. And I feel like it's going to continue for him. Special award.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's all I have for this time for the 5 things, as always, brought to you by IgniteLink, the Tri-State's premier IT management team.
All right. I know it's been close to a week now, but the Herd's on a bye, so there's no game to preview. We'll do that, of course, next week. But we do have a game that we can recap, and it was one that absolutely needed to happen for the Herd. They needed a win in a big way after losing to Georgia Southern in devastating fashion. And that one, like I said in the lead-in, hung around for a little while. And I'm glad that the players and the coaches let that one linger and let it stew. It was nice to get the quick turnaround of a game so that you can try to get a win and get that loss behind you, which happened. Mm-hmm. But they did let that one stew for a couple of days, and it was apparent because they came out and were ready to roll, against Georgia State. And this one goes down 35-20. Herd gets the win, moving Marshall to 4-3 on the season, 2-1 in the SBC East in a dogfight with a number of teams. There's so much. Man, we're going to end up all beating one another, and it's going to come down to freaking tiebreakers. You watch and see.
Yep.
Golly. But don't you love this conference? The chaos, the utter uncertainty. I love it, man. I just wish, we didn't have to rely on some other teams to lose. If we could just handle our business, I would love that. But we are where we are. So Thursday night game, it looked like it was a decent turnout for a Thursday night. Well, I say decent, because it's those. Okay, we can get on this conversation too. Not a fan of midweek games. Never been a fan of midweek games. I think they are fan base killers. Okay, I will always think that. And I feel particularly bad for those Conference USA teams and MAC teams that are playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, specifically Tuesdays. I just don't like midweeks. I think college football was meant to be played on Saturday, occasionally on Friday, but I don't even like Friday because I think Friday should be dedicated to high school football. So midweeks to me are just fan base killers. Too many of your fans aren't able to make a game, and even those that can make the game question whether they should because they still have work the next morning. So it's a recipe for disaster, and you have to ask yourself, is the national spotlight worth alienating our own fans? To me, no, but I get why you do it. Okay, I get it. I'm sure there were a lot of eyeballs on Marshall and Georgia State in that game because it's a primetime slot on ESPNU or whatever. So you were there, right? And how was the vibe there in the stadium or in the tailgate?
Man, it was we had fun.
Yeah.
Landscaping by Hillcrest made sure that we had fun, and anybody that came to our tailgate had fun. We did the Low Country Boil, which has been the midweek game staple for me, and that's because of the time that it takes to make that. You can do that right there and all in one pot, and you can tailgate with people, and they don't feel like they have to be there 4 hours while you're smoking a couple of pork butts and things like that. The vibe was bad when you went into the stadium because of how empty it was. Now you go right down and you score and you get a 2-point conversion, and we're going to talk about all this. It picked up, but then it just really, really kind of sank again. But I'll give it to this. The fans that were there were loud. The people that were trying to run the game did what they could, to get they did the "We Are Marshall" chant and all that, leading the crowd. No one did a bad job at anything. It's just like you could have easily had another 10,000 people in there, and it would have been a totally different atmosphere. But that's all I'll say. I really don't have anything till we get to the grades to talk about all this, so you can hit your numbers and all that.
Yeah. Let me fly through the numbers. I'll do the indicators and the personal stats here for everybody, and we'll get into the grades because that's the fun part anyway. This game was eerily even. I don't know if you've looked at it or not, but it was eerily even. Total yards 429 for the Herd, 427 for Georgia State. Time of possession huge in favor of Georgia State, 34-42. Marshall's 25-18, but still. 35 points, though. When the Herd scores a lot of points, they seem to do it in very quick fashion. First downs, 23 for Georgia State, just 21 for Marshall, edge Georgia State. Third down conversions, 5 of 13 for Georgia State, 3 of 9 for Marshall. So percentage-wise, it's kind of like edge Georgia State, but, only having to have 9 third down opportunities, I think that's a win for the Herd offense, honestly. You've got penalty yards, 8 for 59. For Georgia State, 6 for 37 for the Herd, edge Herd, and turnovers, 0 for the Panthers, 1 for the Herd, so edge Georgia State. It was very, very even in a lot of those categories. Braylon Braxton gets the start for the Herd, I'm sure to the delight of many Herd fans who have been calling for that for a while now. 11 of 20 for $132, a touchdown and an interception for Braxton. 13 carries for 72 yards, good for 5.5 yards per carry. A.J. Turner, baby. 15 carries, 177 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 11.8 yards per carry with a long of 88 and 1 reception through the air, a 30-yard touchdown reception. He was Mr. Everything for the Herd offense. Toby Payne leads the way for the Herd through the air, 4 receptions for 53 yards with a long of 22. Defensively for the Herd, Mike Green said it has to be a career day for tackles. 11 total tackles has to be a record. I'm assuming it is. Okay. 2 solo and a half a tackle for loss. J.J. Roberts, probably the best all-around day for the Herd. 9 total tackles, 5 solo, his first career sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass defended. And not to be outdone from a tackle standpoint, Jaden Yates yet again with 9 total tackles of his own. 3 of those solo and 1 tackle for loss. Impact plays were kind of sparse for the Herd defense. Just the 1 sack, 6 total tackles for loss and 4 passes defended. That's it. Didn't cause a turnover. Reese Verhoff, we mentioned in the lead-in SBC Special Teams Player of the Week off of a 2 of 2 field goal performance with a long of 49 in this one and 3 of 3 on extra points. Alec Clark, quietly, great day. Just 3 punts, 145 total yards. That's a 48.5-yard average for Alec. Hello, one of those goes inside the 20, and the long on the day was 53. No huge news and waves to be made in the return game, kick or punt return, so it is what it is. Let's go to grades. Russ, Braylon Braxton gets the nod, goes the distance. What do you got for him in this one?
Well, I can already tell you there's going to be people in the comments telling me I'm an idiot and all this different stuff, but I've got him as a B minus. We had the interception. Our offense absolutely stalled at times. I'm going to talk about that here when we talk about the actual offense. They're great. He does not run the offense in the passing game as far as stretching the field when Stone Earl's in. It's just, it's different. But you can't argue with the results either of marching them down the field and getting touchdown drives. And ultimately, I don't care as long as we win, but what I am worried about with him is when the run game is not going well for us, that we won't be able to move the ball through the air and we'll become one-dimensional. And if you're one-dimensional and that one dimension is just not hitting, it's a recipe for disaster. So I really, 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 and I'm not dogging him at all, both quarterbacks bring a lot to the table. I feel like they're very similar. Braxton is not a horrible passer, and Earl is just light years ahead of him. I'm just saying that Earl seems to look for throwing the ball more downfield, over the middle, that sort of thing, stretching the field. Braxton is more around the line of scrimmage with his throws, and it can bite you at times.
No, I agree. This cannot be like an A minus performance. And it's not just because of a turnover, but now it's a trend.
Right.
It's turnovers weekly when you're in the game, and that's got to get cleaned up. But you're right. You have to be able to effectively pass the football. And for all the fans that want to see Braylon in the game, I got no gripe with that. I don't have a gripe with it at all, because if it leads to wins, I don't care who's on the field. Right? I don't. But you can't tell me that you're okay with 11 of 20 for 132 yards when just last season that was not good enough for you.
And the way that they're accumulating those yards is more passes toward the line of scrimmage and things that people were like all in our DMs and calling out players by their Twitter handle, for that very thing last year. Winning cures everything is what they say, but we have always said that we're not the fan police, but we also kind of call out hypocrisy when we see it. And that's kind of where I'm at with this is like, am I happy that we're winning with Braylon Braxton? Yes. Do I think that he's head and shoulders above Stone Earl? No, I feel like both of them are very good quarterbacks. And just before Braxton had to come in for that App State game, the majority of the fan base said Stone Earl proved he's the guy, and because of an injury, a curveball in coaching, a combination of the two, all of a sudden it's like I'm seeing stuff on there is like Earl shouldn't even be allowed back on the plane. I mean, why? So, I mean, this is a lot of bitching and discussion of a B minus grade, but I know because of what I've seen on social media, there's going to be people that expect nothing more than an A plus. It's like they've got their tunnel vision. Braxton's their guy. He can't do anything wrong. And, why is it not an A plus? Well, get your own damn show and grade it how you want. He's got to be minus for me this week. And I want to see him stretch the ball down the field and be more accurate with his passing.
Yes, I do too. And here's the thing. I don't give a shit who's behind center as long as we're moving the football. And you have to be okay. I'm okay with whoever is, if you've got the hot hand, play. I don't want to see a quarterback carousel, but we're seeing a quarterback carousel anyway. If that's what we're going to do, then give me the guy that's moving the football and taking care of the football. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I'm also fine with if there is a glaring matchup situation to where you play the other one because they give you the best chance to win. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
If it plays out that way,
Yeah. So how about the offense as a whole?
Man, I feel like I should go lower, but I'm giving them a C plus. And AJ Turner does a lot of heavy lifting to get that grade up to a C plus.
I would hope so.
And let me tell you, in the second half, before his 88-yard touchdown, we had 18 plays for 65 yards, 3 first downs, an interception, and took up 10 minutes, 45 seconds on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
In 10 minutes and 45 seconds of clock, you came up with an interception and some punts. 65 total yards in 10 minutes and 45 seconds. We allowed them to get into this game, and instead of a 15-point win going, hey, yeah, they scored at the end and, we still held them off by 15. No, it took an 88-yard touchdown run by Mr. Everything tailback that we have right now to take that game that just mere plays before that was 28-20, and they're going to drive for the touchdown that could tie the game.
Mm-hmm.
So our offense absolutely stalled. We're seeing some of those problems that we had before, 11 out of 20, 132, like you said, an interception, not being able to get first downs, not being able to get yardage at all, 3 and outs a couple of times. C+ with a heavy dose of A.J. Turner bringing it up from that.
This has become a disturbing trend for Marshall's offense in the second half of football games here lately. Very disturbing.
Yeah.
At some point, you've got to figure out how you can continue to do what you did in the first half of football games. You're moving the football, you're scoring some points, everything's going well. And then halftime comes, and all of a sudden, you can't move the football anymore. It looks like you're playing a completely different defense because you can't do anything. And I don't understand that, because you still have vastly talented players that are capable of moving the ball for you. But this is a trend that cannot continue if you hope to go on a legitimate winning streak. If you hope to be a contender in the East, you're going to have to learn how to move the football consistently for 4 quarters every single game. You don't always have to put points up, but you can't run 18 plays or whatever you said for 60 yards. 2 punts and a turnover during a stretch. And that's how teams get back into ball games. That's how teams start to build confidence that, hey, man, we're not out of it. And I think now for some teams that are remaining on our schedule, they have a lot of confidence anyway. You have to have a lot of confidence to be a football player, to be a coach. You have to have a lot of confidence. But when they see Marshall on the schedule, based on what they saw against Georgia Southern, I bet you that some of them are like, we're not out of a game. You know what I mean? They're just like, they've folded already once. And so that's going to be ever present until you start putting teams away. Just you go up on them and put them away, and you never let them get back into a game. And, for better or worse, that's where Marshall is right now. We're not putting anybody away. We're winning games, which is great. That's the goal. But from a mindset perspective of your opponents, they might think that they are never truly out of a game if it's a 2-score game, in the third quarter. So you got to figure out a way to consistently move 4 quarters offensively and chew up more clock. I mean, it's great to score 35 points in 25 minutes, but wouldn't it be a lot better to score 45 points with 34 minutes of time of possession? Sure it would.
I think what we're looking at here right now is all the potential in the world on defense and offense and special teams, and we just struggle to put that together for a full game. You've got, 400 some yards one week, and you're like, man, the offense just felt like they weren't able to move it when they needed to. And you're like, 450, 500 yards, and we're not complaining, but you're just like, yeah, man, they could have been so much better. Put up 52 points, and you're like, man, I really feel like we, left a couple of we left points on the board. A defense that through the first half, several games now, has given up 3 points, and then they come out and give up a couple of scoring drives to start the second half, and you're just like, nothing is firing on all cylinders right now. But if it can, how scary good this team could be.
Yes. If this offense, when it's clicking, it is clicking.
Yeah.
And now you have to, if you get in a situation where you are clicking, you got to leave it alone. You got to leave it alone. And you've got guys on the defensive side of the football who are individually playing wonderfully, right? But still, teams are able to amass yards, put up back-to-back touchdown drives at points in the games. Like, and we're not playing bad teams. I mean, damn, they field scholarship athletes also, and their job is to score points against your defense, and they're doing their job. But I'm with you. It's like there's so many individually talented guys, and at times, like the entire secondary's playing well, but we can't seem to stop the run, or man, we're shutting down the run, and then you give up a 3rd and 19 conversion, or just crazy stuff. Or, you've got the drive stalled, and here comes the late pass interference flag, or whatever it is. It's for whatever reason, we haven't been able to consistently play 4 quarters of quality football outside of maybe a game or two this year. So down the stretch, that's the name of the game. It's consistency, and all football teams by and large struggle with that word. But the winners and the contenders are the ones that solve that problem, and that's just kind of where we have to be to figure out who we're going to be. So what about this defense?
Struggled with this one too, and I'm giving them a C. It's a tale of two halves again. I felt like the 10 points we gave up in the first half, I felt like the defense was actually playing better than those 10 points, and then the second half, it felt like, man, they just, especially that yard or that drive, 14 plays, 83 yards, whatever it was, and they're driving down for the potential tying touchdown, 7 minutes and 45 seconds. And it's just like, man, the defense was almost like in prevent mode. And I don't think necessarily by coaching decision, I'm saying just the play, it just felt like, I don't know if they were tired. I don't know if they just weren't picking up what they were supposed to be. I don't know. I will say this was a very good, yet again, offensive line that we were going up against. And it seems like we've been going up against some tremendous offensive lines this year. I can't tell you how many games now we've talked about they're averaging 1 sack a game given up. We have played some very good ones. But it seemed like not being able to get the pressure allowed them to sit back and pick us apart with some throws. I'm giving them a C. Could have been worse. Felt very flat in the second half. But a trend that has come up most of the time is when it comes down to it, they get the job done.
Yeah, but boy, oh boy, that just anxiety meter shoots through the roof. You know?
You don't want them to be in that position to have to do that.
Yeah,
but at least they are coming up when it counts.
Yeah, because we could just as easily be watching those late 2000s Conference USA teams that would have a lead, and then we would inevitably know if there's one more possession left, we're going to watch the opposing offenses go right down the field, and we're going to lose the game. And we watched that for several years, knowing it was going to happen. And right now, we might be watching a team march down the field, but they're getting stopped before they get the points. And I'll take that 100 times out of 100 over what I sat through in the late 2000s. What do you got for special teams?
A+, man. The punting, the kicking. We didn't have any major botches of any kind. 36-yard kickoff return for Jordan Houston. Part of a good, I think he had 3 returns for 74 yards. Just A+ all around. The punts with the average, it was also like where he placed them too, and us downing them there. Just really, really solid game overall.
Yeah, and you can see in games like this, when we talk about those indicators and how close they were, a lot of times those special teams, and particularly the punt game, can play a massive role in that. And you see that play out in this one. Your punter averages nearly 48.5 yards a punt. Yeah. I mean, that's great. You're hoping to most of the time get up around that 41, 42, and you're like, that's a really good day. But you get one inside the 20, you got a long of 53. I mean, just 3 punts in and of itself says you did something right, but it's kind of a head scratcher when you talk about the offense stalling at several points, but only having 3 punts. That's kind of a yin and yang type scenario, but great special teams day. great special teams day. What do you got for the coaches in this one?
I've got them at a B minus, and the majority of that, we came out ready to play, had the team hyped. They had them playing with a purpose, marched right down the field, scored. And not only that, said, hey, we're so serious, we're going to put 2. You're going to give it to us, we're going to take 2 to go up 8-0. 18 did nothing. They jumped out ahead. Everything was looking good. Second half, that's where it came down. The defense was deflated a little bit. The offense, ineffective for most of the second half. That has to fall somewhere. It's on the individual grades here, but it falls on coaching too. If it's happening in the second half and you're not coming out and making those adjustments when the other team comes out and says, hey, now we're doing this, they're getting dinged for that. So B minus. And, it's not just when we say coaching, we're not just talking about the head guy. Usually they take the brunt of everything. But, your defensive coordinator has to come out and say, look, guys, we're going to have to stop this. They're doing this right now. While the offense is on the field, he's over there saying, okay, here's what we're doing. The offensive coordinator has to say, we cannot be 3 plays and out and putting this defense right back on here. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. So I'd say it was close to an A+ in the first half, and that second half drop off brings them down to a B-.
See, and I'm starting to wonder if that is starting to creep into how we talk about this team, is because it's a quick, jump out on top of a fairly large lead, and then you watch it get squandered away in the second half. So you're like, damn it, man. Now that weighs heavily into how I'm factoring, because the second half of a game is massively important. If you jump out to a big lead, you expect, as a fan, as a coach and player, you expect to maintain that lead and maybe even build upon it, because you have shown that this team cannot go toe-to-toe with you, right? Or else you wouldn't have jumped out to a huge lead. So there's obviously some mismatches there and things that were being exploited. And then if the trend is that all of a sudden those don't work in the second half of games, that's concerning. That's scary, because we're going to play some good teams that obviously a big lead is not safe. We've already played one, and a big lead was not safe, and it's not going to get any easier for some of these other teams. So fair, I will say, congratulations to Huff for getting that midweek win. That's been tough. That's been tough for him.
And definitely had the team, after such a drop-off, like you said earlier, had them ready to play, had them pissed off. 5-day turnaround after a late Saturday game for a Thursday kick, and the manner that we lost that game on the previous Saturday, this was going to be a tall order, and I feel like they came out ready to play, and he had everything. I mean, the game plan was awesome. It's just that second half drop off.
Yeah. They were, I don't want to say, but it almost was like, man, they're playing on a lot of adrenaline. They wanted to get going, and they jumped out of that big lead. And, dude, the two-point conversion was awesome right out of the gate. Like, kudos for that one. And then you got the lead, and then the adrenaline kind of slowed down, and it was just like, we're coming down off of this high, and damn. But, who would have thought? Definitely not us. Coming into the season, we didn't put a circle around this Georgia State midweek and go, this could be the pivotal game of the season. And that's what this one, to me, kind of felt like after that loss at Georgia Southern. It's like, all right, well, which herd is going to show up? Which herd is going to run out of the tunnel? Because that's going to set the tone for maybe how the rest of the season is going to go. Are they going to come out and get punched in the mouth by Georgia State, or are they going to come out and do the punching? And they did. They came out and were ready to fight, and they bloodied the nose there real quick. 18 zip real quick, and bam, you're off and running. Just need to get those questions answered for the second half of games. You can't rely on your defense to constantly make the last stop. You just don't want to be in that position. What do you got for the fans off of this one?
Got them as a B. The ones that showed up, like I said, they were in there, they were cheering. And I am not being the fan police on us not having a packed crowd. I said it all week long. I said it when I was on the Georgia State podcast as a guest. that a lot of our fans, they're coming from Charlotte or somewhere in Virginia or Lexington or whatever, Cincinnati area. It is tough to drive down for that game when you've got work that day and work the next day, unless you're taking a 4-day weekend, and 2 days off of work. It's hard for a lot of people to come in. And even if they could do that, maybe they can't do that because their kids have school, So the ones that were there did well. And, I can't give an A or an A+ to what seemed to be 15,000 fans or less.
Yeah, I dig it. I mean, fair. I didn't see, from the social media side of things, I didn't see anybody like ready to dive off of a cliff again this week. You're always going to have the typical amount of haters that are ever present. It doesn't matter.
Maybe you just fine-tuned your ignore list to the point where it's getting better.
I don't ignore anyone. I mean,
no, I know. I'm just joking.
I know, but I mean that's something that I don't do. So
I know.
I don't see all of it because that's impossible. But yeah, none of you guys are muted and blocked unless you're a spam account. Unless you're like trying to invite us into like a adult only room or something. Click this link.
Well, and even some of those, maybe we'll.
But no, I don't really mute anybody. So I'm here for all the conversation. But anyway, it was a pretty good week. Now we just need to keep it rolling. We'll rest up, get healed up. Got a lot of time to game plan for ULM. Now you have absolutely no reason to be inside Joan C. Edwards Stadium and not be prepared and as healthy as possible for this game, which is a big-time game. Big-time game. Did not think I would say that, but it's a big-time game. What do you got overall for the Herd?
Overall, it's a B. Like I said, quick turnaround, and you come out with a victory. I'll take it, man. 15-point victory, I'll take it. Am I happy with how every bit of it went down? Absolutely not. Am I thrilled to get a victory that keeps everything alive? Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to go with a B. Plus, it's always fun when Landscaping by Hillcrest says, let us make your tailgate magical. And that's what we did, man.
It is great to get a win. And everything essentially for the Herd is still on the table. You might need a little bit of help, but you're not eliminated from a championship game appearance. You win and let the chips fall where they may, right? You just take care of your business. So everything is pretty much still in front of the table, still on the table at this point. So we do know we're going to need a little bit of help. Congratulations to Georgia Southern for getting a win over James Madison. That was a impressive game. I think that was a lot of folks had JMU penciled in to win that one, but didn't go that way. So Georgia Southern looks kind of for real, and kind of makes what happened to us seem that much worse because we had that game in hand, but that's okay. That's now ancient history, and we won't want to deal with it until it starts to be involved in the equations and tiebreakers, I guess. Russ, who's your offensive MVP this week, if I had to guess?
Turner. You can guess all these. You know who they are.
Yeah, is it anybody but A.J. Turner? Jiminy Christmas, what a day by that guy. Defensive MVP.
Roberts. Such a great all-around game. Timely sack. The pass deflection, just everything he did. 5 solo tackles. The guy comes in like a missile at times. Mm-hmm. And he has been there and kind of been overshadowed in a couple of games this year, just not because he did anything bad, but because somebody else just had such a ridiculous game. And you're looking here in this game, Mike Green ties his all-time record for tackles in a game at 11. And J.J. Roberts, I felt like, overshadowed that in this game. Mm-hmm. So J.J. Roberts.
Well, J.J.'s having a great season, but what we're also seeing is the emergence of some new playmakers for the Herd on defense, right? Jacoby Henderson has come on in the past couple of games, months or whatever.
Jaden Yates has been
lights out. So we knew what J.J. Roberts was going to be, and we were so happy to have him return back one more year for the Herd. And it's just that what he's doing, you just expect that he's just so consistent. That's a guy that is consistent game in and game out. He's always going to be around the football. So what you expect for him to do, he just does. So it's oftentimes guys that you don't expect to have a big game, or we aren't used to seeing big plays made yet by them, are making them. Who's your special teams MVP? Shocker.
Veerhoff.
Yeah, it's like we're in line with what the Sun Belt's thinking this week. Do you have any final thoughts on this particular game?
I do not. Nope, said it all. Got a W.
Well, I got one, and I think this is a great time to talk about it, because you're talking about offensive MVP and AJ Turner and the season he is having. He could easily lead the Sun Belt Conference in rushing at the end of the season. He has got to be a front runner for slam dunk first team all conference honors. Might even be that offensive player of the year. Who knows, right? The sky's the limit. Everything is in front of AJ at this point. Mike Green is having a phenomenal season. Right, Reese Verhoff is having a great season. There's some individual guys on this team that are having great seasons. And I think it's a great time to talk about something that we haven't talked about in a long time. The Thunder Trust, right? If you want to be impactful for the herd and in the NIL space, you really need to be a part of the Thunder Trust. And Russ and I both are individually. We donate to the Thunder Trust. You can be a part of the Thunder Trust too. All you got to do is go to ThunderCast.Online and click the donate link, and you can see how you can be a part of the Thunder Trust. If you can't remember that website, well, conveniently, the link is in every single description to every single episode that we publish on the Thundercast, ThunderTrust.com. If you want to try to keep this top talent with the herd, because believe me, Mike Green is on some radars, right? AJ Turner is now probably on some radars. And as much as these guys want to stay in Huntington, I hope they want to stay in Huntington. I hope we can keep them in Huntington. We play in a world of college football that's just different than it was several years ago. So if you're able, and if you've been wondering how to get involved, that's all you got to do. Click the link, type it into the browser, and check it out. ThunderTrust.com. Russ, you got nothing? Let's take it around the herd.
Yeah, so a lot of these are going to be quick, and I'm just going to point you over for all the details to Herd Zone, where you can read the articles, look up the stats. Volleyball picked up a couple of wins, beat ULM 3-1 and 3-2, get them back on the winning track in the Sun Belt. They are at Georgia State this weekend, 10:25. That'll be at 6 p.m. and 10:26. That'll be at 2 p.m.
Cool.
Women's golf, upcoming on the 28th and the 29th. They will be at UNC Asheville for a tournament. Swim and dive, they lost at Duquesne 180-177. I mean, you talk about tight. So you can look at who did what over there, who got us the points, and how we narrowly lost that. But that's over on Herd Zone, like I mentioned. Cross country, the same. Better results here, though. Women finish second and the men third at the Falcon Invite in Bowling Green, Ohio. Again, over on Herd Zone, they have all of who did what, who finished where, and that sort of thing. Men's basketball, you said it earlier, fans first, coming up. I'll tell you how it's coming up. It's coming up Sunday at 4 p.m., just days away. Women's basketball, same day, 6:30 p.m. And I will say that you need to go. You can, these are free games, but there is a code for you to go in. You'll still need to get a ticket to go in, but you'll get those tickets for free. Look that up on Herd Zone. It's all over social media as well for the different for men's basketball, women's basketball. You can use the code, get in for free for both of those. Women's soccer, they are playing right now at Old Dominion. Have you seen any of this, KD, or am I going to? All right, so I have a feeling who might be getting women's defensive player of the week.
So Fort Wolgemuth is having a great day, I'm assuming, huh?
Well, if you consider 9 saves.
Oh, my gosh.
A great day, and most of them have been by the diving variety that are highlight worthy. But we're 77 minutes into this game. ODU has had 17 shots, 9 of those being shots on goal. Wolgemuth has 9 saves.
Wow.
Talk about a wall. She is a wall. They've also had 8 corner kicks, ODU has. And as much as those 9 saves stick out, what also sticks out is Marshall has 1 shot, none on goal.
Wow.
So right now, this game is a 0-0 tie, and it's one of those that it looks like it's 0-0 just because of the out of this world play right now by Alexis Wolgemuth.
Jiminy Christmas. Good for her.
If we end up winning this game and it's not a tie, you know what I'm saying? Like we win this game outright and we get one on the board and she has a clean sheet. I don't see how anybody else, unless somebody out there is in double digits or just a crazy better stat line than this, this has been an all-time game for her.
She might be SBC Defensive Player of the Week for 2 straight weeks off the heels of this one.
Also with the women, they will be hosting James Madison on Sunday at 1 p.m. So you just think about what we said about men's and women's basketball. That could be a great Sunday for everyone in the Huntington area. Get out to the Vet and watch women's soccer. That game will end in time for you to get over to Fans First men's, and after that game is Fans First for the women. All right. Finally, men's soccer. They are playing right now at home. That is in the first half over there. They got out of Coastal with something I want to talk about briefly. 0-0 tie. And I put on Twitter, I don't know if you saw this, but the Frank Beamer both hands in the air celebration at 0-0. Those fools from Coastal Carolina, you would have thought that they won the national championship 8 years in a row. I mean, they went nuts when it was 0-0. They didn't seem to attempt to try to score. You know, they were just like, nah, we're good. We're going to stay on the back half back here, you know. And, I mean, it was just impossible to try to get a good shot on the goal when they were just all down there. And that was their game plan of, let's see if we can come out with a tie. And then they just went absolutely nuts, you know. It was, you know, the Coastal ESPN Plus broadcast, so they were focused on their players, obviously. And at the end of the game, you know, they're ripping jerseys off and jumping in the air. And, I mean, seriously, I think we had a more low-key celebration when we won the national championship. It was crazy. Anyway, they're playing right now, so we won't have that update for you. They are also going to be at Georgia State on Sunday at 6 p.m.
Well, I've got an update for you. It is 1-0. Georgia Southern has the lead on the Herd right now. That was in the 14th minute, and the tweet was 16 minutes ago. So probably on the back half of the first half of play, and that was the last update. So Herd. Hold everything. As of 5 seconds ago, we have tied the game. So the match is now even 1-1 late in the first half. How about that? So
yeah, I've got
live breaking news.
I've got the live stats trying to load on that. I was paying more attention to the women's, but I'm getting that up. Shows just over 27 minutes, 1-1. And 24-56 on a penalty kick goal. High Pinto got in and found the bottom right of the net, it says.
All right. Anything else around the Herd, or is that it?
That's it.
All right. Well, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we get out of here? I do, and this is just something by happenstance because I went. I'm sure you saw last Saturday I had the day off, and my buddy Moth and I went down and watched the Miami Hurricanes at Louisville game. Phenomenal game, by the way. Phenomenal game. We did not think we were going to see this high-scoring affair, but it's my first game inside of the Louisville Stadium. It was nice. Picked up a lot of tips and tricks, I want to say, on their game day experience, and I thought it was really, really cool. But the biggest thing that I got out of it was I think I solved, I know you probably saw this. I think I solved the whole conundrum with how Marshall can have a Ring of Honor type thing and satisfy everyone. And I'm not going to talk about it here because, this could eat up 20 minutes. So let that be known to whoever that I think I've got a simple solution. It was a very simple solution, and we could have that in Huntington, and it would not be gaudy or ugly inside our stadium. It's a very simple fix. So anyway, that was a fun time. It was a great game, but that's been a point of contention from a lot of fans saying we need something inside the stadium to recognize our all-time great players. Even we've said that we do need something, and it's not in the concourse. You need to be able to see it inside while the game is going on. So I have a potential solution that we could do that we should at least explore to see if it's feasible. But I got nothing else so you can take us out of here if you want.
Yeah, just a quick update. Still 0-0 for the women, still 1-1 for the men. Obviously, by the time everyone is listening and watching this, those games will have been gone. But whether you see us at the Vet, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us at the Cam for both fans' first days, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. I might as well say this. Our basketball season tickets for the men and women got delivered today, so we're going to be giving out tickets to all the home basketball games. Believe me when I tell you, our women's tickets are freaking sweet. You're going to want to get those. Until next week, it's the ThunderCast. Later.